Welcome back to the Weather Authority Weekend Show. And joining me now, I'm so very excited about this conversation, is the CEO and founder of Weatherstem. This is Ed Mansouri. So, Ed, welcome to the show. Give us a little bit of background about you, and let's talk about what Weatherstem is. A lot of folks probably don't know what you guys do, but it's a lot.
Sure. Good morning. Thank you very much for having me. Again, I'm Ed Mansouri, and I'm a meteorologist. I have been, like most meteorologists, I've been passionate about meteorology since a very young child. And I'm also a computer software developer. So I've been able to create a company that sort of fuses those two passions. So what Weatherstem is it's a network of weather stations that each have cameras attached to them. And we've distributed them all across Florida, many in your area, in the Jacksonville area, and up the East Coast and west along the Gulf Coast. And all of those weather stations report to a platform that's available on the web, a mobile app, even social media, that is basically designed to, first and foremost, show what is going on right now. Okay, what are the current conditions, and how are those conditions potentially hazardous? How are they impactful to important events? For instance, we have one on top of the football stadium where the Jaguars play. I'm sorry, I've lost track of the name. It's TIAA
Everbank
Bank.
Stadium
Everbank.
now.
Yep.
They've changed it a lot.
Yep. And then the each of these stations has its own website that, in addition to showing the measurements from the weather station, and in addition to showing what the cameras are seeing, it also brings in information about lightning and historic data, climatic data for that location, forecast data. We've been getting very into the intersection between weather and health. So there's even forecasts that, if you're a particular person that's vulnerable to allergies, if you're vulnerable to dry skin, how does the weather contribute to your ailment? So it's basically as many cool things as we can do with weather data as possible, made available to the public.
So, Ed, why did you think this was something that was necessary?
My background. So before I started Weatherstem, I ran and this is I'll make this story as short as possible, but it's important to answering your question and helping you and your audience know why I started this program. Before I started Weatherstem, I actually ran an educational software company, all right, for about 17 years. And a project that I helped start and manage for many years, is probably a lot of your viewers are familiar with, is the Florida Virtual School.
Right.
So if you take a course from Florida Virtual School, the platform that you use to take your tests, to get your content, to communicate with your peers, I actually created that platform. And I managed that platform as my day job for about 17 years. And it was during that experience that I had the opportunity to learn that the state of Florida at the time did not offer a meteorology course for high school students. And I thought that was kind of peculiar, that here in the state of Florida, where we get hit by hurricanes at least 6 months of the year, our two biggest economies are agriculture and tourism, which you can't think of something that impacts those more than weather.
Right.
It just feels like if there's a state where our children should be more weather literate, it's Florida. So the program actually started as an educational project. We first started, if you went to our website, there are a number of links to find free educational content.
I love that part of your website, Ed, and I hate to interrupt you, but I was digging around and I love that you offer these segments. I mean, you can take like a whole meteorology course and a final exam at the end. I mean, it was fascinating.
And that's what we did. So again, I'm sorry to make this longer than it needs to be, but we were successful in lobbying the Department of Education to offer a course in meteorology that we created the curriculum for. And the Florida Virtual School actually offers an online meteorology course for credit. So then we said, well, hey, we have all this curriculum we've built about weather. What if we could go to a school, set up a weather station, and then actually load the data from the weather station into the course, so that kids are learning not with made up data, but actually from data that is coming from right there at their school. So we went about, at the start of the project, we actually donated a weather station to a public school in each of Florida's 67 counties.
Oh,
and it was sort of an experiment that worked. And then that led to, hey, we could set up cameras with these things. We could add lightning information. We could add safety information. And then over the course of time, I sort of honestly kind of became a lot more interested in the weather aspect of what I was doing than, what my day job was, which was running an online education software company. So I sold that company so that I could focus 100% of my time on Weatherstem and doing what we're doing now.
Yeah, it is fascinating. So did you start in Tallahassee with your first Weatherstem?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, but I moved to Tallahassee. I grew up north originally. I grew up in the snow belts of upstate New York, and I think that was one of the things that triggered my very early interest in meteorology. Going to sleep and there's grass and no snow, and waking up and there's 3 feet of snow on the ground.
Lake effect snow. Oh my goodness.
Lake effect snow. Yeah. If you've never experienced, probably a lot of your viewers don't know what that is, but oof. It's unlike anything you can describe.
Oh my God, it like cuts through your skin. I mean, like you can wear layers and layers of clothes and still be cold.
Yeah. You literally can get a foot of snow in a few minutes. I think that kind of triggered my early interest. And I moved to Tallahassee to go to graduate school for meteorology at Florida State University. Mm-hmm. And that's when I kind of sort of started my entrepreneurial experience and have been here since, and love Tallahassee.
So how many cameras do you have now?
We have, and I should have had a number here, but we have over 1,000. Mm-hmm. And a lot of a significant concentration of our work is in Florida. One of our biggest projects right now is with the state of Florida, the Florida Division of Emergency Management, FDEM. Mm-hmm. We're in our 6th year working with them to set up these solar-powered cellular weather stations that are capable of withstanding hurricane force winds. And if you ever go to any of our sites and see them prefixed with FSWN, those are the stations that are part of that project.
Okay, yeah. And so one of our meteorologists, Mark Collins, wanted me to ask you specifically, how do your stations never go offline?
Well, knock wood, okay. Not in the IT
world.
And
we just had 2 big storms blow through Florida, so.
Well, so originally, as I mentioned, we started this program educationally. And originally we were focused on having these schools, and a lot of our work really got catalyzed during Hurricane Michael, which, as you remember, hit the Panhandle in 2018. And one of the counties that was really ravaged by Michael was Jackson County, which is actually inland. Okay, so you have Bay County, which is where Panama City is. North of that is Jackson County. And at the time, the only weather stations in that county were some we had set up at the schools there. And once the winds got to be about 110 miles an hour, the power and internet at the schools got knocked offline. Okay. So we actually, after that, we had a conversation, but one of our stations down at St. George Island, which is in Franklin County on the coast, that stayed up because it was solar powered and cellular. Okay. So it has the solar part of it. It stores enough charge so that it can stay online, even if you had like 5-6 cloudy days in a row. And it's cellular. So it's not, so it's basically completely self-contained. As long as the cellular networks are available, and as long as the sun has been out at least sometime in the past week, then the stations are going to stay online. Yeah. There have been a few cases, like we had in Hurricane Idalia last year, right? Down in Horseshoe Beach, which is in Dixie County, a tower that the weather station was on actually collapsed in the storm surge. So, there are certain circumstances, even, beyond our control, where, we're not resilient to that, unfortunately.
So let's talk a little bit about the technology of the station and what makes it tick? How are you tracking and folks around here, I know, especially during the past few hurricanes we've had, Helene and Milton, have been sending in their numbers from their weather stations in their backyard. How does Weatherstem take that to the next level?
So we've engineered something that we call data stream. If you go to one of our weather stations, the updates are literally happening moment by moment, like literally every second. So we basically created this a little component that we attach to our weather stations, and I can show it in the camera here. It's called the Weatherstem Cloud Utility. Get it, cloud, kind of pun intended.
Very good.
And so basically that component is sort of engineered to connect to the weather station that it's attached to, and to connect to the cameras that it's attached to, and then basically just kind of like compress that data and send it over the wire in small but very frequent intervals. So we've done our project, and what's interesting is I mentioned my background is meteorology, but probably 99% of my job is more like computer science, network engineering. So there's a lot of just good old-fashioned computer science, critical thinking to solve the problem of how do we have a weather station that stays up during these big storms and can create a lot of really good high-resolution data for the people that are most importantly using the information to keep the public safe. And then also from a research standpoint, giving a good solid repository of data to better understand these dangerous storms that continuously impact and disrupt our lives here in Florida and beyond.
Right. And climate, I know NOAA yesterday put out their winter outlook for climate. So, I mean, things are constantly changing. In 2023 here in Jacksonville, in February, we had an 88-degree day, but in 1985, we had a 7-degree day.
Yes.
So, I mean, we're constantly seeing all this change, and to have this type of insanely intense data can only help benefit everybody. Who's using your data?
We make all of our data available in the public domain. Okay. So, there's some weather providers out there that, they make it proprietary. They, commercialize it. Like if a company hires us to set up weather stations and they say this data needs to be private, well, then, we have to respect that. But by default, all of these stations, so what happens is we, like every minute, we take an observation and store it permanently in the database. Okay. And then that data is perpetually available for free on the web to anyone who wants it. So I know that, like, for instance, the National Hurricane Center, in order to read their storm reports for any of the hurricanes or tropical storms that have impacted Florida for the last really 7-8 years, you'll see a lot of Weatherstem references. You'll see a lot of observations that reference Weatherstem. In a number of the storms, some of the peak inland wind gusts were measured by our stations. We have a lot of local city and county municipalities that use the data. One interesting area is insurance. There's a lot of, for instance, there's some agricultural companies that offer rain policies. So if you're an agriculturalist and you lose your crops because of a drought, there's actually policies you can get, and they underwrite those policies based on rainfall records.
Sure.
Okay. And here's another one that was unexpected. We actually, this is kind of cool, if I do say so myself. If you went to weatherstem.com/FBS, like football bowl series, we created a college football weather tool. So what it does is it merges together, weather data with college football schedules, and it even shows it live. So if you're looking at this tool, like on a Saturday, it's showing the scores moment by moment along with the weather conditions. Well, we did that as sort of a marketing tool to promote to stadiums. All right. And, the data for the sports, like the scores and all that, it's not free. All right. So we pay. So last year we said, this isn't really showing much of a return. So we took the tool down, and you would not believe how many emails I got from sports gamblers.
Oh,
right? Yeah, sports gamblers. And we're not, just to be clear, we're this is a free tool. We're not in the, I don't have a, to each his or her own.
right.
So we don't have a business that promotes or supports gambling. We have a free service, and it turns out that apparently it's being used pretty heavily by sports gamblers.
I guess so.
to try to get an understanding of how are the weather conditions potentially going to impact aspects of the game. You think of the kicking game. How is the weather going to impact the running game versus the passing game? So
yeah, is the game going to be delayed? I mean, we always have the weather warnings and the lightning, and then they'll have to evacuate the dome, and everybody has to stand around. So, I mean, weather's a huge part of our sports.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot of and of course, I know that educationally, a lot of like say statistics, actuarial science. We offer so you could go to our stations and say, okay, give me for instance for Jacksonville for Everbank Field, give me the temperatures in 1 minute intervals for the whole month of November 2022. Okay, so you could go get that data set, and if you're teaching computer science or statistics or actuarial science, you can use that real world data model to teach statistical mechanics, mean, median, mode, standard deviation, all that sort of stuff. So I know there's a lot of folks using our data set, which is a quote big data set from actual real world data that we make available free of charge.
That is very cool. Now, are your stations available for residential or just commercial use?
We have a couple, and in full disclosure, the very first Weatherstem system was at my house, my backyard. Okay,
Well, you got to test it somewhere, right?
Yeah. So I mean, there are. I mean, what's kind of cool about, you were talking about a lot of your viewers sending in weather data is I think that as we make advancements in manufacturing and like 3D printing, as the cost of microchips go down and their ability to operate with less and less power improve, I think we're just at the tip of the iceberg of, a tremendous explosion of weather data. So like there's a company in New Smyrna Beach, a Florida company. They have a product called Tempest Weather, all right? And that is like more designed toward residential applications.
Right.
Okay. And, I think they're making a tremendous amount of progress. We do have a few like hardcore weather geeks that want like a full Weatherstem station at their house. I mean, I'm not trying to discourage that, but I mean, unless you're, unless you have like a serious passion, our product isn't really priced for like residential purposes. There are better solutions out there, honestly. I mean, we'll work with you. Hey, you got money to spend and want one on your house. Hey, call me up. But
I know here locally, they're on our pier in Jacksonville Beach, the Everbank Stadium. I saw one. Where was another one? I can't think, but I did look online, and I used to fly traffic in Dallas Fort Worth, and so I saw you had one at the Texas Motor Speedway.
Yes.
So I pulled that one up the other day. I was like, I used to fly over the Texas Motor Speedway all the time. So it was really cool to be able just to see what the data was reading right there over the Texas Motor Speedway. And I mean, you had so many different options of places that you could go and check out the weather. If you're traveling, you kind of have an idea of what's happening.
We're doing our best to expand. Like we literally just this morning, the very first station of ours in the state of Wisconsin just came online. So we're sort of slowly moving up, and we're one of the things we're excited about is making measurements up north, like with snow, is kind of presents a different kind of challenge. And we're making some progress. We've just introduced a new component that can differentiate between rain and sleet and freezing rain and snow. So as our technology matures and makes advancements, we see that as being opportunities to serve parts of the world that we have not really had the ability to serve as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Ed, I really appreciate your time today. I thank you so much. You have really, I think, taught me a lot about Weatherstem. I find y'all fascinating. I think it's such great data. And in a data-minded world right now where people just want more information, you're really offering such an amazing product.
Well, thank you so much. And we do feel good about what we're doing to promote weather literacy as well as data literacy. And we feel that today's youth, when they enter the job market, no matter what field they go into, whether they go into journalism or pharmacy or anything, they're going to be working with big data. And I think we have an opportunity to help provide a good source and some guidance for that. So we really appreciate the opportunity to tell your viewers about our project.
Yeah, absolutely. So weatherstem.com
yes,
is where you can go check out their product. So Ed, thank you for joining me today, and I hope you have a great rest of your weekend.
Thank you. You too.